Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. John Stenke just finished presenting at the Goldman Sachs conference. While it's still fresh on my mind, I wanted to make this video right away. So it was about a 35-minute conversation, some interesting Q&A, and John Stenke gave some pretty big answers. So I wanted to talk about that right away in this video. Something to note for AT&T, as we've discussed, right? Fiber plays a big role in the AT&T business. And in fact, over the last few years, I would say fiber has taken priority inside the business, right? If you're looking at capital allocation, right? People keep asking, well, how much is AT&T spending on wireless? The majority of the pot is going to fiber, and it has been for quite some time, right? The ratio I've heard is 60-40, and it's going to go 70-30 here in the coming years. That's how aggressive AT&T wants to get on fiber, and that's why they're looking into lowest cost per bit and all that, right? Because they don't want to invest too much on wireless, but they still want to have a best in class network. They still want to be in line with what the competition offers, but they don't want to invest majority of their capital allocation on wireless, right? They've made that very clear, and Stenke hinted at that again at this conference. But again, as we've seen, they're still willing to invest with a lot of purchasing power into wireless, right? The Ericsson deal, C-band, DoD 3.45, more 3.45 from Dish, right? More from Sonic Wave, 600 megahertz. They spent $1 billion investing into the US cellular spectrum. So they're still on the lookout for spectrum, regardless of what the capital allocation priorities are. They're still looking into spectrum because that's the fuel for the wireless network, right? But there's other parts of the wireless network that people wished AT&T would invest in, such as bigger densification, right? More quicker modernization, but it's happening. It's just taking a while, right? So a few things that Stenke noted, right? He said that he's still seeing a lot of questions around 600 and are we going to use it? What's going to happen with that spectrum? And he made it clear that they want to attempt to deploy it, right? So he said, and this is his words, he said the 700 radio that we have in the network today is reaching end of life. We deployed that years ago. It's reaching end of life. So if we have a consolidated radio ready that can do 700, 600, we're going to deploy that and we're going to climb sites and deploy that, right? That's a good thing, right? That's going to lead to a more efficient, maybe even a one-touch climb, right? But what I will say to counter that is right now, 1/3 of its network is undergoing a massive modernization. And he can't dispute that because it's happening. They're going from outdated, older Nokia to the latest and greatest Ericsson equipment. So those 700 radios that are going on those sites will not be outdated. Those will be fresh and new, right? So regardless of how you look at it, he's going to have to climb sites again in that, across that territory if he wants to deploy 600, right? Especially like a New York City. That's Nokia today. It's going to Ericsson, right? And in that market, they can do 20 by 20 N71. So they're going to be more inclined to deploy there. He's going to have to touch those sites again, right? So it's not the most efficient network build, deployment, upgrade, modernization we've ever seen. It's just not, right? Let's call it what it is. It's not the most efficient build. It wasn't from the very beginning, right? The one touch, they weren't true to it. They deployed C-band N77 3.7 only on a lot of sites and did not elect to deploy the 3.45. So now they're going to have to go back to deploy that, which is a good thing because he did discuss, and of course he's the CEO, so he's going to say this, but he says they have the best asset base in the industry now. You know, the fiber scale, the spectrum, the scale of network, right? He referenced being 300,000 square miles bigger than the next closest competitor. So he says all of that leads them at the management level right now, you have the asset base. Of course, they're still having to wait for the approval from the FCC for that spectrum from Dish, but I just don't see an issue with that, right? The FCC, they were the ones to call for it. So I don't see any issues moving that through the approval and getting the green light, right? So once that closes, now he has that asset base, which he perceives to be the best in the industry. He says now we just have to go and execute, right? My management team, we have to go and execute this. So he's not wrong in that from that angle, right? They do have to execute, and they haven't executed the best. I think he understands that. He won't admit it publicly, but they've made some mistakes along the way, right? If they knew that they were going to go for more 3.45, they should have added the DoD radio from the beginning, right? Across a lot more cell sites. There's a lot of cell sites, if you think about it from a national perspective, that are missing DoD. So he's going to have to climb sites again, right? He could wait for a consolidated radio for 600 and then climb those sites. I mean, however you want to do it, it's inefficient. You still have to climb the sites again when you climbed them once before, right? So from an asset-based perspective, he says his spectrum asset and everything that's been deployed is right in line with what the competition offers. And that's what he wanted to achieve, right? And he said, I don't have to worry about today if there's another auction next year, the year after, the year after that. My asset base is set. My asset base is set, and he knows exactly what he has, where it's going to be deployed, and what the future holds in terms of service revenue, what they want to do with that spectrum, right? So that's a big win for AT&T, right? It's a big cost up front, but it's going to lead to a lot of cost savings, right? Site avoidance. He mentioned cell splits will no longer be needed if we're talking a few years down the road, just because of this spectrum purchase. So they're saving money that way. So that's one way to look at it. And in a way, from what he said, he just wants to provide the internet. He doesn't care how it's being provided. And that'll, at the end of the day, that'll be up to them to decide. But he wants the customer to think of it like, hey, I need internet. And AT&T will be the ones at the broad scale to select on how they provide that to you. Is it FWA? Maybe. Could it be fiber if it's there? That's the position that AT&T wants to be in. And he wants it to be a seamless, smooth experience for the customer. Wake up in the morning, the internet works on fiber. You leave the house, you're on a well capacitive network with the new asset base that they just acquired from Dish. So that's how AT&T views it. That's how John Stankey views it. And the execution will be very interesting to monitor, right? That's something that he did say they have to execute this. So just looking the last 2 to 3 years, execution hasn't been the greatest, like I said earlier in the video. But they have a chance to go at it again. New assets, right? A lot of the radios already deployed. It's not on every site, but it's deployed. So that's a quick software upgrade from the 3.45. They're going to have to climb sites again. That is a given, right? They're going to put this spectrum to use. So if there's a radio that's just, or a site that just has the C-band radio, that ain't going to work, right? You're not going to spend 23 billion and not put that spectrum on those other sites too, right? So the team is going to go back to those sites, right? Now, the interesting part is, are they still going to densify moving forward? I think that's really going to be on a market per market basis. I don't think they have a full wide scale deployment of densification planned. Just not the case. They're just going to look at it on a market per market basis. What's the market share? Are we growing market share? Are we converging? And that's leading to more wireless market share. That's how they're going to look at the densification. And I think that's how the local teams will get more funding approved from the regional level. The only justification, I think, is saying, hey, look, we're growing. We have a really, really weak area here, low RSRP. We need to put something there. I think that's how the teams get approval for more funding for the local markets. But other than that, I don't think the teams can go and say, hey, we're going to densify, 3,000 new CRAN in this market, and then they're going to get shut down for what? Why are we doing that, right? So that's, being as efficient as possible. But I do think it's needed, even for my market. I could see where the densification would be necessary, but they may not see it as necessary because of, several factors, right? There might not be enough usage in the neighborhood. Maybe there's too much fiber offloading. I mean, the the speculations can go endless in that regard, right? So only AT&T knows what's best for them. John Stenke said he has the best asset base. So we'll see over the next few years how we watch them deploy it, right? And then we'll see the outcome. We'll see if they end up with, the best overall performing network still, right? As they claim here per Root Metrics and Ookla. They outperform T-Mobile in speed, reliability, and performance. Plus, AT&T Fiber water the fastest, top-rated internet. No mention of Verizon in this article. That's interesting too, right? To note, they did not mention Verizon, so maybe Verizon is not on their radar. Maybe they're not as competitive as T-Mobile is, right? That could be something. The reason they dropped this article. Maybe T-Mobile is getting to them. Maybe they're taking their customers, right? Something to think about. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Stanky is confident, very, very confident in the asset base. The team has to execute. They have a lot of stuff to deploy. We'll see how it turns out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.